I will read Thank you. I will read the Columbia Land Conservancy's land acknowledgement. We are on the unceded lands of the Mohican, Lenape, and other Algonquin-speaking peoples. CLC recognizes the Indigenous history of this land and supports efforts today to build a more equitable space for all the human and non-human relatives who call this place home. Now I have the pleasure of introducing my colleague, Marissa Codey. Marissa is the Special Projects Advisor at the Columbia Land Conservancy. Marissa has worked for CLC for the past 20 plus years, helping individuals, families, community groups, and partner organizations facilitate conservation projects and transactions. Much of the farmland protection work she coordinated over the last decade involved a variety of tools and techniques designed to keep farmland affordable. She has now turned her attention to the broader intersection of land conservation and housing affordability, and is now leading CLC's efforts in this realm. She has served on a variety of local nonprofit boards and community groups, and is currently a board member of the Lonely Worm Farm in Dutchess County, and a founding member of the Trillium Community Land Trust, which will be discussed more this evening. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to pass off to Marissa. Thank you so much, and please, please, please do ask lots of questions this evening.
Thanks, Mallory. You can go to my first slide. All right, well, thanks everybody for coming out tonight. I am going to start my part of the presentation with a brief overview of CLC for those of you who are not familiar with us, who we are, what we do, and why we're in this space talking about affordable housing. Al Bellenchia from Habitat for Humanity will go next and talk about their work, and then we'll come back together and open the field for questions and dialogue. CLC's mission is to bring people together to conserve, appreciate, and enjoy land. Next slide, Mallory. We are one of the bigger nonprofits in Columbia County. We have 18 staff and around 40 volunteers. We were formed in 1986, governed by a board of trustees. We're donor, member supported, and nationally accredited by the Land Trust Alliance, which is the national organization of land trusts. Next slide. Some of you may know us through the properties that we own. We own 10 properties around the county with over 30 miles of trails. We have also protected around 40,000 acres of privately owned land since our inception. That includes farms, forest land, open spaces, and important wildlife habitats. And in addition to our land protection projects, we for a long time have worked to help individuals, families, community groups work through land management. We provide agricultural support and work a lot with schools, towns, and community groups. Really, one of our biggest strengths as an organization is our ability to collaborate and have strong partnerships. This is a slide showing CLC's direction going forward. We just completed a strategic plan. And this groups our work into 3 general categories. The green circle talks about conservation. So when we're thinking about what lands going forward, what lands we want to protect, we want to be really strategic and purposeful about what we're protecting and why, who's going to have access to those lands, who are we leaving out. And so just being really thoughtful about how and why we're protecting the lands that we protect. For our public lands, we are looking to make sure that we're using them for demonstration purposes so that people can learn from them, and that we're working hard to make sure they're providing opportunities for connection, education, and engagement by everybody. And then finally, the last orange circle is promoting a conservation ethic and practices that will benefit protection of our watersheds, our food sheds, climate resilience, and addressing environmental inequities. Next slide, please. So why is housing relevant to CLC's mission? I imagine that's a question that some of you out there are asking, and it's a really good question. There's no single answer, but Housing is a land use challenge that we simply cannot ignore. Healthy communities need abundant, high quality, affordable homes along with protected land supporting clean water, food production, and climate resilience. So as a conservation organization, there's no question that it's central to our mission to help encourage and support the siting of new affordable housing units to minimize their impacts on the habitats and ecosystems that we've been working to protect. Next slide, please. So what is the status of housing affordability in our region? There's been a lot of talk about affordable housing. It's referred to as a housing crisis. So this is a really short snapshot of what's going on. The data that I'm going to present was provided through reports done by the Hudson Valley Pattern for Progress. Next slide, please. And Pattern for Progress does a really good job of taking a lot of information and presenting it in a way that's understandable. One way to look at this is simply looking at median sale price of homes. So this probably won't surprise any of you, but between 2018 and 2023, median sale price for homes increased by 94%. So that's an increase of $226,000 for a median priced home. Median income families, so those are families that have an income kind of in the middle brackets, are now between $100,000 and $280,000 short of being able to qualify for a mortgage to purchase a home. Homes are simply out of reach for the majority of people. Inventory of home sales has decreased by 58% since 2018. And when we look at rentals, those are equally as unavailable and out of reach. Next slide, please. So what does that mean? Demographic shifts. For a long time before the pandemic, population in the mid-Hudson Valley has been declining. Birth rates are down and younger people are leaving to go to places that are more affordable to live, moving to New York City, but also to places like Florida, South Carolina. It's just too hard to live here. Why does that matter? Isn't less population better? The answer is no. So we need to maintain economic diversity in order to have a vibrant community. It won't come as a surprise that Columbia County, along with the rest of the Hudson Valley, is seeing labor shortages, closing of local businesses. And when populations decline, schools do not get better. Less students does not mean better schools. It means school closures, less state aid, less federal aid. We're seeing healthcare shortages. And data from Patterns for Progress confirmed recently looking at what's happening with the workforce. And it's not that the proportion of people simply not wanting to work has increased, but rather the pool of workers overall has gotten too small. So there simply are not enough people here to fill the available jobs. It's not that people are sitting around choosing not to work, they're just not here. Next slide, please. So what do we as a conservation group, why do we care about this? What can we do to reverse these trends? There are many things, starting with the fact that we can and are working closely with partner groups, businesses, community members, municipalities to help create safe, efficient, and climate-friendly affordable housing options, while at the same time expanding public access to open space, trails, and other natural areas. Next slide. And working in the realm of affordability is not new to CLC. For the last decade, we have been working on farmland affordability. That's one of the things that we've become quite well known for. We have used a lot of tools and provisions that were originally created in the affordable housing realm and applied those to farmland protection projects. Those photographs at the bottom are just some of the many projects that we have worked on over the last decade in farmland affordability. Next slide. So you might be asking, yes, but doesn't building more affordable housing units fly in the face of land protection? Isn't that contrary to what a conservation organization is trying to do? And the answer is no. I used, by way of example, the Taconic Headwaters Conservation Plan is a plan that CLC recently worked to facilitate with stakeholders from several different communities located along the upper headwaters of the Taconic Creek, which provides drinking water to the city of Hudson. And we can look at that plan, look at the areas that the stakeholders and communities identified as most important to protect for watershed water quality. And there's nothing that says that we can't also simultaneously look to build thoughtful, affordable housing units in the same space. So what we want to do is think about where are the places that are most appropriate for conservation and where are the places that are most appropriate for housing. Next slide, please. One of the efforts that CLC is involved with, along with Al from Columbia County Habitat, and a total of 10 organizations, we've been meeting for over a year, is the Hudson Valley Affordable Housing and Conservation Strategy. So this is a partnership among land trust and housing groups trying to figure out throughout the Hudson Valley, how can we work together to support each other, to bring about projects where we're working together to achieve mutual goals. And we are now starting to think a little more on the ground about, now that we've gotten to know each other, know each other's staff, know what we're doing, what can we actually do? We're looking at policies, so thinking about at the state level, can we create places for new funding opportunities, thinking locally. So Al and I, for example, will be meeting with municipal officials to think about what can we do to help with zoning, or what challenges are different communities facing, and how can partnerships between housing groups and conservation groups be more effective than us working against each other. CLC is a fiscal sponsor for a grant that was awarded to the whole group from the Land Trust Alliance, that's helping to carry this effort through for another year. Next slide, please. And another effort that CLC is involved with is the establishment of a community land trust called Trillium Community Land Trust. A community land trust is a housing land trust as opposed to a conservation land trust. And the idea is that the community land trust owns the land, whereas individual homeowners can own the houses on top of the land. The lease between the two makes sure that those housing units remain available and affordable over time. Homeowners can build equity by selling their houses, but they can't be sold at above market rates. And the Community Land Trust, also known as a CLT, has a three-part board. So the board will be comprised of community members, homeowners, and local organization and municipal officials. So CLC is also a sponsor for one grant, or a fiscal sponsor for one grant to Trillium Community Land Trust. And several of the people from the Community Land Trust are on the meeting tonight. We meet every other week and have been moving forward with a lot of energy and enthusiasm. We just got our incorporation last month. And in 2024, we'll be having more community outreach events, and there will be more opportunities for different towns to engage and participate as the CLT develops. Next slide. So I'm now going to introduce Al Bellenchia, the CEO of Columbia County Habitat for Humanity. Al has global experience in strategic planning, marketing, management, and organizational development. He started with Columbia County Habitat in 2021, and under his leadership, they're now evolving to provide more homes and services to low and moderate income families. Al is a trustee of the Friends of Lindenwold, home of President Martin Van Buren, and a director of the Kinderhook Tri-Village Rotary Club. Al and I have been working closely together in a number of spaces, and I think are providing Columbia County with something that has a lot of potential to serve a lot of good when we can combine forces. So Columbia Land Conservancy invited Al to join us tonight and speak with you about Habitat's great work throughout the county. Go ahead, Al.
Thanks, Marissa, and hi, everyone. Excuse me a little if my voice is a little not up to snuff. I've been battling something over the last few days, but I wanted to start out and just sort of reintroducing Columbia County Habitat and Habitat for Humanity and how it works to folks. Even though we're celebrating our 30th anniversary this year, there's still a lot of people in our community who don't quite get how we work and what we're trying to do. So the bottom line is, what we're all about is creating housing and creating safe and affordable housing for average wage workers in this county, which is the core of our county and our county residency. Next slide, please. So we were founded 30 years ago in October 1993. In that 30 years, we've built 25 homes, built or rehabilitated 25 homes in 6 towns, sort of north and south. We're currently underway with 2 homes in Philmont, in sort of the middle of the county. We also provide critical home repair and accessibility services to senior and lower income folks. We've built a lot of ramps, and over the last 2 years, I think we've done in excess of 30 projects to help the elderly and disabled to be able to get around or get in and out of their homes where they had once been homebound. Almost everything we do is community supported. And by that, I mean, for most of our 30 years, Habitat was mostly a volunteer organization. The board was volunteers. We had very little staff, and our build crews were community members like yourselves. We came together and helped build houses alongside the potential homeowners. We are evolving. We've grown our staff. I think we have about 8 full-time staff now, not including our restore operation. And we're growing to really professionalize what we do in order to be able to build more homes more rapidly. And over the last number of years, that's what the organization has been doing. Next slide, please. So earlier this year, we adopted a new strategic plan, a 3-year plan that we called Vision 2025, and committed to doing a minimal number of things. Building 3+ homes a year starting a year from now. We're building 2 homes right now, side by side in the village of Philmont. We are going to evolve to focus more on starter homes, basic homes that no one is building anywhere in the Hudson Valley, and certainly have not built in Columbia County in a number of years, and focus it solely on people who need to get into housing that they can afford. And I'll explain what affordable means. We're looking to build off a prototype, which I will describe in a little bit, but really to build a number of types of homes that meet the needs of our community in a number of different ways. And the community support part is, in order to accomplish that and to scale our organization, what we need is, to look at how subsidized affordable housing is taxed at the local level. We're working on a number of initiatives to introduce what we're calling tax fairness into the equation. We need zoning changes, or to work with towns who are interested in having affordable housing cited in their communities on what zoning changes they may need to make, or what their existing zoning allows, and how we can work through that. And we need community support. We need community support in the way that it recognizes that less housing is an economic disaster for most communities. It means a whittling tax base. It means, as Marissa said, lower enrollment in schools, which reduces funding. It means substandard housing, and a community that lacks diversity in its housing type are not vital. We've seen over the last 25 years a great outflow of people from the Hudson Valley and from Columbia County in particular. I think the numbers are about 135,000 people have left the Hudson Valley over the last 25 years. And in Columbia County, we follow that trend as well. That is not, that's not a virtuous cycle. That is a vicious cycle, and we need to arrest that. Next slide, please. So, talking about our program, I think there's some misunderstanding about who qualifies for our program and how they qualify. So, our criteria are really simple and straightforward. You must demonstrate a need for housing. What does that mean? It means you pay over 30% of your housing, which is the federal definition of affordable is 30% of your income goes to your housing costs all in. So if you're paying over 30%, you can qualify for our program. That you have an ability to pay a mortgage, because we do not give away our homes. We tailor the sale price to what our potential families can pay at a 30% cap of their income. And third is a willingness to partner in some way, shape, or form to the building of their home alongside community members. So it's fairly straightforward, and more people will qualify for a habitat housing program than the community, than individuals think they can. Next slide, please. So what does that mean? And what do the numbers look like? Right now, we work at a threshold or a band of between 50% and 75% of what's called area median income. And this is defined by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development each year, and each year it changes. For 2023, the area median income for a family of four is $103,000. That seems like a lot. And it just shows that, the median income means, that's just the midpoint. So there are plenty of folks who 50 to 75% of that income will qualify for participation in a habitat program. So that's most of the average wage workers in this county. The average wage worker is between $48,000 and $55,000. And so at 50 to 75% of area median income for most folks, they will qualify for our program. And affordability means our families, as I said, never pay more than 30% of their income. So their income, when they agree to participate in our program, will be based on what 30% of their income will buy them in terms of a mortgage. And then we work back from there. Next slide, please. These are the two homes that we are building in Philmont. They are 75% done. We broke ground in July, or started excavating in July, and utilizing our own construction crew supplemented with volunteers. These houses have gone up very fast. These are two beautiful little 1,300 square foot capes, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths with a full basement. So they're meant to expand to the family if the family's needs change and they need grandma to come live with them, or they have an addition to the family. So these houses and all future houses that we're designing are meant to expand or be adaptable for the families who purchase them, so they can stay in their home for generations. We expect these homes, for which we have 2 families already selected, to be complete in the spring, March, April, May time. Depends a little bit on weather and a little bit of fortune, but we're expecting to be able to welcome our families in certainly before summer, and then get on to our next projects. Next slide, please. So earlier this year, in conjunction with our 30th anniversary celebration, we introduced a new building model. And this is starter homes that we are looking to build in great numbers over the course of the next few years. The design of these homes is one, to be super energy efficient, very low impact in terms of carbon impact, so they're going to be very green and will fit within the climate smart community model, and certainly the funding that New York State is providing home developers in terms of green technologies and energy efficiency. They're designed to be simple for families to operate, especially those families who don't have a history of home ownership in their background. So very few systems, really just a heat pump to power the HVAC system and a hot water heater, and that's it. So these will be all electric houses. They'll be low maintenance, so they're designed not to have to spend a great deal of time or money to maintain the structure of the home. The materials can all be locally sourced, and we have a number of partners who are working with us to be able to source these homes at a at a good price, all using very low impact products. They're designed to be volunteer friendly, so we can continue with our model of volunteers participating in the building of these homes. And they will be priced, we are doing the final pricing now, but they're designed to be priced at a valuation of $250,000 or less. Next slide. And that is a level that no one is building in this community, has not for some time. There are no $250,000 or below houses that don't need upwards of that amount of work to make them habitable. So we have three basic designs in this new building model. The one on the left here is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath model, about a little less than 1,000 square feet, expandable on either end, to accommodate more space. The middle here is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath home with an accessory rental unit designed to accommodate the need for lower income folks and or smaller family units or senior folks who are looking to downsize but still need the income and in essence provide two dwelling units on one site. And the third is a 4-bedroom, 2-bath to accommodate larger families. We are looking to provide a mix of these homes in the developments we build. Next slide, please. This is an artist rendering of what the homes will look like. They are all natural wood products. They are designed to be efficient in terms of building. We're expecting that once we get our prototypes, built, that we should be able to build homes of this type within 90 days and be able to put a number of units up in a very short period of time, and that's how we'll reach our numbers. Next slide, please. Inside, they are designed to be light and airy without, and be energy efficient, minimizing the use of windows and other inefficient light sources. They will have a light pipe from the roof designed to illuminate without needing energy to do so. There will be a mix of natural and products and other green building products as well. Next slide, please. This is a prototype of what a 3-acre development will look like. The technologies that we're using will allow us to meet health department standards in terms of independent well and septic on smaller lots. So we can build on half-acre lots. We can build, on smaller lots if there's existing infrastructure. But we're looking to site these so that they are attractive, small community developments and don't look like, they've been, erected as a trailer park. Next slide, please. The waste disposal and technology will allow us, again, to achieve smaller lots and higher density on smaller parcels. And this really fits in what most of our communities in rural areas want. They do want housing, but they don't want mega developments and they don't want sprawl. So we can build more densely on a given parcel of land to be able to fit in with what communities need and be able to design each development so that it attractively fits into the land available. Next slide, please. So really what we're looking to do, and this is where the conversation has started with the Land Conservancy and other land groups in Columbia County who are trying to figure out how to get more housing built, is that we have to do this together. And so collaboration across municipal groups, across stakeholder groups, and across the the variety of nonprofits that need people or are looking to in ways to keep our community vibrant without inducing sprawl, have been working over the last year or so. We've been involved in many of these housing groups that have sprung up across the county, and the conversations have led to some significant developments that, have been made over the last year that did not exist a year ago. That's the Housing Task Force, that's the Trillium Land Trust, that's the County Land Bank that's coming online. And there are more and more people throughout the county who are recognizing that we need to do something. Columbia Habitat and Habitat for Humanity really is the only answer for affordable home ownership at a small scale, and the scale that works for more rural communities. So we designed our new building program to fit in what our stakeholders have told us they are looking to see and to bring into their communities. So we're hoping that, in the next few months, we'll be able to announce some of these initial projects and developments coming online. Thanks, and next.
So this is our last slide before we open it up for questions, and it echoes a lot of what Al was just talking about, that there's no single answer here. There's no single solution, but the key is really in thinking creatively and working together to figure this out. This just a few ideas, of which there are many. There are little things that can be done and big things that can be done. So at the top, just one of many ideas is taking a contentious issue like ADUs, accessory dwelling units, that have been vastly kind of criticized for what they do to affordability because of Airbnbs. There is the possibility to say, hey, you can have ADUs that are rented year round to households that are below a set income threshold, for example. So that's a different way of thinking about something that's been a challenge. Inclusionary zoning. So this is kind of thinking about incentives, offsets. What can we do rather than the carrot approach? You must do this. What can we do to help towns, developers, those involved in this sphere to think about the reasons why it's beneficial to build affordable housing? So is there funding? Are there sort of zoning flexibilities for incorporating affordability? Zoning, Al alluded to this, is a really, really big issue in Columbia County. There are many, many towns that have zoning that includes things like 1, 2, 3 acre minimum lot size. And if you're thinking about doing collaborative projects like the image that Al brought up, where you have the houses clustered together and trying to preserve larger tracts of open space, those larger lot minimums are tricky to work with. So really kind of thinking about within your town, what are the tweaks that we can do to make our collaborations be easier, a little more effective. Many towns, almost all at this point, have groups, people, individuals thinking about housing affordability. We don't all need to recreate the wheel. So it's really a matter of starting the conversations, learning from each other. Some towns have done one thing, some towns have done another, and really just sort of making sure that we're all in this together. And it's not just Columbia County, right? It's Hudson Valley, national. This is a huge issue, but we can think locally and kind of work together to come up with solutions. So we can now turn it over to questions. In the Q&A is where you're supposed to type your questions if you have them for me and or Al. We'll do our best to answer them.
So the first question has come in, and that is, how many affordable housing units are needed in Columbia County?
Al, do you have I don't know that I have a number per se.
I don't know that a number has been, it may be in one of the housing reports that Pattern for Progress did, but it's in the thousands. And that, that doesn't just mean, single family homes. That means units. So rentals, multifamily units, single family homes, duplexes, etc. The number of people who need affordable housing numbers, especially if the workforce grows as the population ages, which is what is projected and what we're seeing in the county, we're not keeping up with that. It's certainly hundreds of each of a variety of types.
Another question came in for both of you, asking, have you considered zoning overlays for affordable housing as a town zoning modification to help simplify development? And they give, for example, exemptions to zoning for specific types of development.
So I think that's a question for me. The answer is yes, and that's really up to the town. So we've been on a tour of municipalities over the course of the last 9 months or so, and that's been a topic of discussion in just about every uh, housing committee or planning group that we've met with. Somehow, some towns have that already in their plan, their comprehensive plans, or in their municipal plans. Some are considering them, and some are just at the starting point there.
The next question, how can CLC and then Columbia County Habitat help municipalities adopt zoning that allows affordable housing?
Yeah, I can answer that. And I think this gets to some of the strength of the partnerships that we're a part of. The Hudson Valley Affordable Housing and Conservation Group has made us as a local land trust aware of all of the resources that are out there to help towns. So we can, Al and I, and the others that we know in the county working on these issues, can meet with individual towns and help think about ideas. We can also go back to those who we know who might also be able to provide additional resources, support. I think it just depends on the situation, the town, but we are available. Anybody can contact us and we will help figure out solutions.
We have another individual writing in that they recently heard about a $1.5 million New York State grant for affordable housing in Columbia County. Can either of you speak a little bit about that opportunity?
I will take that as the beneficiary of that grant, which was secured for Columbia County Habitat by Assemblymember Dee Dee Barrett's office. That funding comes from an existing New York State infrastructure program called CREST. I can't remember what the exact acronym stands for, but it's designed to help nonprofits invest in infrastructure to serve the public. So that funds, and we're in development in terms of how it's going to be specifically deployed. Will be used to help us increase our capacity to build more and to bring more housing production into the county. Specifics are still being worked out in negotiations with the state agency that oversees the grant.
And Mallory, before you go to the next question, I did also want to addend my answer to the one about zoning to point out that Chris Brown is on the meeting tonight. I'm not going to call on you, Chris, but Chris was recently hired by the county as the housing development coordinator and is a wealth of resources as well for towns thinking about zoning and housing issues. And I'm sure he would love to talk to whoever wanted to see how he could help them as well.
Wonderful. Thank you, Marissa. We have one question here that asks, the owned home / land lease model seems to include limits on future home sale prices. This, in theory, limits the buildup of generational equity / wealth. How would a formula limiting sale price be determined, and what factors would be considered?
Yeah, I can answer that one. So yeah, that is correct. It does limit it to some extent. A CLT, a community land trust, may not be for everybody because of that. There are different ways to calculate what the price restriction could be. It could be tied to an index. It could be tied to the cost to I've redeveloped the house at a later date, essentially, sort of what is it worth at a later date, not how much has it increased over time to the maximum extent. For example, if you rebuilt the house with all kinds of expensive stuff, you may not get that back, but the replacement value of what the house was is a way to calculate it. Essentially, it increases to a certain extent, but not unlimited. That's the strength of the CLT model. There are other benefits that CLT homeowners can get from being part of a CLT community. And we have talked about this a lot in our meetings. Those benefits can be things like help with first-time home ownership challenges. Habitat does some of this as well, of course. Being part of a community, so the community land trust can provide resources because you're part of a broader grassroots effort. But yes, the houses cannot increase exponentially. That's correct.
And yeah, let me add a little more color to that, in that,
Yeah.
you know, out of the CLT realm, you know, the state has upped its investment in affordable housing across a number of fronts. Specific to home ownership, they've increased you know, the dollar amount of per unit subsidies they give to developers, you know, to put more housing up. Some of those higher level amounts are coming with greater restrictions in terms of, you know, deed restrictions on who the houses could be resold to and what income levels. So I think that we're seeing this up and down the Hudson Valley and across the state. I think we're seeing a trend that, you know, the more subsidies that the taxpayers really are funding for this, the more the state and municipalities are looking to make sure that, you know, yes, generational wealth or equity can be created in these programs, but not to an excess. So, and I think it's a fairly fair trade-off in terms of, if we're building a house for $300,000 and at 30% of income, we're selling that house for $150,000. Someone's getting a $300,000 house for $150,000. And so for a period of time, their ability to, you know, to realize full equity is going to be curtailed, but they're getting a direct benefit in terms of, you know, getting much more house than, you know, for their dollar than they would have been able to afford without assistance. So we haven't found much pushback from those who are looking at our program and accepting those terms.
Wonderful. The next question that's come in is that they name that one big issue for affordable housing is affordable and available land. Are there ways to use land where conservation values are preserved and land that is marginal is used for affordable housing?
Yes. And that is one of many goals that we hope to accomplish. I can highlight a project that was recently completed in Red Hook because I think it's relevant to that question. In the town of Red Hook, there was a property that recently went for sale that's part farmland, part more sort of marginal land. It's right on the edge of the village. In that case, Red Hook purchased the land, the farmland itself, in collaboration with Scenic Hudson Land Trust. The farmland is being protected was protected with a conservation easement held by Dutchess Land Conservancy and was recently sold to local organic farmers. The non-farmable part is going to be developed by RUPCO. That's a housing group to put a number of affordable housing units on that part of the property. So it's a really beautiful kind of textbook example of how all of these things can come together at the same time. And hopefully, you know, that may look different in communities where the towns or villages don't have the capacity to purchase property. Maybe there would be another way to go about doing something like that. That's where creativity comes into play, land trusts, and other housing groups. But there are many, many different ways to put projects together that can work.
Wonderful. Another question here about Another possible solution, the county has many tax lien properties. Are there any possibility to dedicate some of these to affordable housing projects?
The short answer to that is yes, and that's what the county land bank that has been formed is designed to do, is to take those properties and to be able to convey them to, to affordable housing developers. That mechanism had not existed before, and so now it is. And Chris Brown can talk to this, in some other forum, but that's what that mechanism is designed to do, and it should be up and running in a matter of months.
Wonderful, thank you. The next question is that Philmont's historic district nomination is to be approved this week and will be a further obstacle to affordable housing because the incentives require considerable upfront costs that can only be paid back through much higher rents. Is anyone working with historic preservation to amend this model?
I can say that we've not been in conversation with the village about that specific topic. So no, and as of right now, there really aren't any available parcels for development for affordable housing that meet the criteria to be able to build immediately. So no, but that's not a conversation we've had with the village.
Great. One question that I had for both of you is I wondered if you could share if there was one affordable housing myth that you'd like to see debunked. If you both could share on that with everyone.
I don't know if this is a myth, but I think it's important for people in a rural community like ours to visualize what we're talking when we talk about affordable housing. I think the word affordable housing is quite contentious and conjures up visions of something that is not what we're talking about, right? That conjures up these sort of the other side of the tracks, big giant falling down building. And in a rural community like ours, we're talking about something that can enhance communities, that affordable housing is climate friendly by virtue of getting a lot of state grants that require climate friendly building. So I think the answer to your question from my perspective, Mallory, is just what are we talking about when we talk about affordable housing for a community like ours?
I think, to elaborate on Marissa's answer, I think that there are a lot of old notions about affordable housing, and which are appropriate, they're grounded in reality. A lot of affordable housing that was built in the 50s and 60s, were these large monolithic blocks of housing that even the residents didn't want. And certainly, I think that the question of how housing gets built in our community and for whom and who gets to participate in the decision making is a very valid question. And that's really what we're trying to raise to the public's consciousness, is that this needs to be a community conversation. I know as a developer, we're not looking to build anywhere or anything that our communities don't want. And so we're not ever going to come in and say, we bought this parcel of land and we're going to put this down in the middle of your community and start it off with a lawsuit. And I know that happens, and people are afraid of that, and rightly so. So, I mean, the answer to start out with in terms of what affordable housing is to change that question. And so who needs affordable housing, or who needs housing that's affordable, is most of the average wage workers in this county. It's the people who work at the hospital. It's the people who work at Co-arc. It's the people who work at our small businesses and waitress. It's our kids who come home from school and have no place to go when they want to seek, to work where they grew up, and there's no affordable housing other than mom or dad's basement. And so there are many professionals in this county who are, because of the fact that they don't have the assets to put $100,000 on the average home, to be able to afford the mortgage, who can't get on, get on the home ownership path. And so that's who needs the type of housing that we're talking about. So it's not quote unquote affordable. It's the housing that built our communities. And that was, a good supply of housing that the average wage worker could invest in and live in and grow a family and stabilize their community.
Wonderful. Thank you both. I want to give everyone who's here tonight an opportunity. We just have a few minutes left together. If anyone does want to ask an additional question while we have Al and Marissa here and all of their expertise and knowledge, the Q&A is at the bottom of your screen. And while people are marinating, I'd love to hear Al and Marissa, how did you both get involved in this work?
I was shanghaied off a wharf in San Francisco. I've been involved in real estate and development and organizational development for a number of years. And prior to coming to Habitat, I was helping to rehabilitate and save a Shaker village on the top of Mount Lebanon. So I got really interested in community living and community preservation. And then the Habitat opportunity became available, and I thought it was a natural fit. So I'm anchored to this county and believe that it can help show others the way to solve this problem.
Yeah, I can answer that. I started out my career in conservation in the Midwest after getting a MS in environmental science and moved to Columbia County in 2003. And every year since I started in the field of conservation, I've moved a little more and more into the realm of we can't conserve anything if we aren't working with the people and the communities. And so I've slowly sort of moved more and more into the community matters instead of we're going to protect the land and hope the community comes with us. And so at this moment in time, affordability is so critical, whether it was farmland affordability or now housing affordability. What have we accomplished if people are gone because they can't live here, and conservation is not benefiting everybody? So I think the strength of land conservation organizations to contribute in this realm is so huge. We have so much that we can add, and there's so much potential for what we can do together. So that's why I'm now doing this.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much for taking the time to be with us here tonight. We have one person who just commented in saying that they want to thank you for all of the great informational facts that were shared in the meeting. So I also want to echo that. We'll give a little virtual applause to our speakers tonight from wherever you are in the world or within Columbia County. And thank you so much for taking some time out of your evening to be with us. Our next conversation is going to be on January 9th. As part of registering for this conversation, you registered for the whole series, so you'll get notifications about the upcoming talks as well. And we cannot wait to hear from you and see you in the future. So have a great night, be well, and take care.